You're right, everyone. So I wanted to make a video on Hunt Showdown, specifically why I think it's still a great game, despite its flaws, and after all this time, and why I think you should play it. So, let's get started. First of all, the graphics. They're great, even now. You can't really ask for much more. Especially now there's so many settings for each game, like the raining. It looks really good. I really like it. It's quite immersive. The main thing though, the main selling point of the game is the gameplay, and it's very unique, it's very good. I think they've done a fantastic job. One thing I really like in particular is that they've limited each game to only 12 players. I think that works massively in the game's favour, and really makes you more cautious. It also don't really get boring, at least it don't in my opinion. And in that regard, it's quite comparable to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, which I also made a video on. But it does have a lot more content than that, like a lot more maps and guns. I'll talk about it in a minute. Now, on the maps, as I've already mentioned, the graphics are fantastic. So all the maps are really well detailed, both graphically and also in all the things you can interact with. It feels you can interact with mostly everything in it, which is great. There are 3 different maps, and pair that with all the different map settings, like I said before, with like the raining, means there are a lot of different combinations for there to be. So it does help keep it quite unique. Each game's quite fresh. Next, about the bosses, there's 5 of them, and I think, again, they're all very unique and well made. I also think they're very well balanced. Like, obviously some are easier than others and some are harder, but there's none you feel really lucky to have got in each game or really unlucky. It's just pretty much the same for all 5 of them. You can play each game in groups 2 or 3, which is really good, and like I say, it fits well with the fact that there can only be 12 players in each game. I am glad you can't have a bigger group than 3, because I think that really would mess with the 12 player cap. Though I do wish they'd have a possibility where you can play on your own, so you don't have to play in teams of 2, or at least with teams of 2. Now, there is a solo game mode, quick play, but I'd like to be able to play solo in the main game mode. And speaking of quick play, honestly, I don't like it. Unlike the main game mode, I find that it gets really quite boring and repetitive quite quickly, so I'm not a fan. Like, it's good that it's a thing, and I do play it occasionally, but not often. I'd much rather play solo in the main game mode, like against teams of 2, than play it. As for the guns and weapons, they're also really good. There's a lot of them, first of all, and they're all very unique. There's a lot of guns, and there's a lot of different variants of each gun. And of that, there's also a lot of different skins, like legendary skins. So really, there's a massive variety that you'll see in your games. This variety is really good because it means whatever your playstyle is, there's something for you, which is always really nice. Next, the PvE, all the different enemies, I think are also very good and varied. And I do quite like how the PvE interacts with the PvP, although admittedly at times it can be quite annoying. They're in as much variety, they're not as unique as like the bosses are really from each other, and it would be nice to see more, but really you can't really ask for much more. I think they have done quite a decent job with it. I also really like how punishing it is. If you die, all your guns, all your perks, your character, the equipment, everything is gone for good, and the only way to get it back is if you pay for some new ones. This works really well in the game's favour too, and again helps you, well, forces you rather, into a more careful playstyle, which I think is very good. There's a lot of customization for each hunter as well, like there's a lot of different ones, though unfortunately the majority of them you do have to pay real money for. I do wish you could unlock more just through playing the game normally, but it's not too bad, I understand. None of the DLCs are, at least overtly, pay to win, though some people argue some of the skins are. And this just comes from each skin's camouflage. Obviously some are harder to see than others, and some people argue that this is pay to win, because you're paying for something that's harder to see. And I do see where they're coming from, but personally I don't really find it that much of an issue, but it is something to take note of. The sound design is phenomenal as well. It's fantastic and plays a massive part in the game. And I'm not just talking about the music, which personally I do quite like, but I mean the directional sound in the game is incredible. Things from like horses and dogs barking and birds, they all come together to give you a good image of like where your opponents are, all from the directional sound. It's really good, really well done. So overall, the game is really good for a number of reasons, with very few negatives in my opinion. It's so incredibly rewarding, especially when you just escape with a bounty, like with the skin of your teeth. It's incredible and very unique. I really like it. It's a fantastic game, and if you couldn't tell already, I highly recommend you buy and play it. It's great, it's well worth it. Anyways, thanks for watching, I'll catch you in the next one.